This exhibit on Trailblazer 1 is called Space, and it's all about everything in orbit and outside of our own planet. So we're going to talk a lot about the International Space Station and what those scientists on board are doing and what they're discovering. So our first exhibit in the space content area is our robotic arm. Like every content area, we always start with the exhibit that's closest to the door, so that way the kids can move along and everybody's in an organized fashion. So our robotic arm actually has space for a couple of kids to engage at the same time. So much like the astronauts on board the International Space Station will have a spotter look at the screen to give instructions to their friends. We want to encourage them not to look down, so that way it's truly like the real experience of the astronauts. The other two kiddos can each grab a spot on one of these two joysticks, which controls our really fancy robotic arm, which mimics certain arms on the International Space Station that actually build it and keep it operational. So we like to say that this billion-dollar payload, that's a number that actually came from one of our NASA friends who said that they actually move billion-dollar payloads. So the goal is to move the payload from this location to this location where there's magnets that are going to hold it. I also want to point out that there's a small light right here. That light will turn red if the robotic arm's been overexerted and it needs a minute to reset. So if your kiddos are getting frustrated and they can't move the arm, check to see if the light's red, because if it is, that means the arm's not operational for that moment. You have to give it a second. And if they don't get it within the time frame, just be conscious that everybody wants a turn and say, good try, let's have somebody else go. So we always like to finish up telling the kids about what career in STEM that this exhibit is related to. And you can find them on these nice rounds that are on the wall. So, hey kids, did you know that robotics engineers can make $90,000? This is a really fun and really awesome way to get kids to think about their future. So our second exhibit is called How Much Does It Weigh? And we're talking about relative gravity. So the difference between weight and mass is that weight is mass plus the pull of gravity based on that specific planet's gravity. So we have a couple of different celestial bodies over here for the kids to see the difference in gravity for each of those. We have Earth, we're pretty familiar with that one, the Moon, Jupiter, and the Sun. So have each kid come up, they're gonna put their hand underneath and grip onto it. They're not gonna crush it, hopefully. We don't want any Hulk hand Coke cans. So hold on to it, try to lift that up. Hey, that feels pretty usual. Now the Moon is smaller than the Earth, so what do we expect this Coke can to weigh? Let's see. Whoa, it's super light. And in fact, we weigh about a third of what we would on Earth on the Moon. So Jupiter is way bigger than the Earth. So let's see what it would weigh. It's so much heavier. It's 2.5 times the weight of Earth. So if you had a backpack on Earth and you went to go visit Jupiter, that backpack would weigh 2.5 times what it does on Earth. And let's see. Okay, the sun. The sun is the biggest object in our solar system, so much so that its gravity affects every planet. So let's see how much that Coke can would weigh. Oh goodness, we could never lift that up because it's so heavy. One STEM career that's really familiar with relative gravity are astronauts. We've heard of astronauts before, but did you know that astronaut makes about $90,000 a year? So that's something I would make sure to mention to the kiddos as they're lifting and filling these cans and seeing how heavy they are. Our third exhibit is called Spot the Station, and you use it to spot the International Space Station. So the International Space Station is this football field-sized spacecraft that's orbiting the Earth and conducting science experiments inside. So when we want to see exactly when that space station will be overhead so we can actually see it with our eyes, so whatever city you're in, type that city name in, view sighting opportunities, and then you can see when it'll be above your head. Now here's something really fun about the International Space Station. It travels 17,000 miles per hour. So astronauts see about 15 sunrises and sunsets a day because they're just going around and around the planet. And those people who design the spacesuits actually make about $72,000 a year. So that's a fun fact to include at the end. All right, and so when we get to our last exhibit over here, we're gonna explore a virtual reality spacewalk. And this is one of our most popular exhibits. It's really fun. So we have these ViewMaster VR headsets, which inside you'll see that there is a phone. So you're gonna go onto the phone and we're gonna show you which app to select. And after you selected the app, make sure to grab one of these handy dandy alcohol wipes because we want each kid to put their face on it, but we want them to do it hygienically. So the difference between VR, which is virtual reality, and AR, which is augmented reality, is that virtual reality is a brand new, totally digitally created world. And that's what we're gonna experience with these headsets. So one thing to realize is that the Trailblazer is gonna get really crowded with lots of excited future scientists. So we need to make sure that they're staying safe. We like to make sure that they're pressed against this counter so that way they don't explore, because once you actually have the headset on your eyes, you can kind of get totally unaware of your surroundings in the real world. So have them put it up to their eyes and then instruct them to actually turn around and look around. Keep those elbows in tight, kids, because we don't want you to bonk your friends. And we have two, so kids can go at the same time. Make sure that the alcohol wipes do not just end up on the floor. We have little trash cans around that you can throw them away in. Virtual reality is a really popular and growing field. So a virtual reality designer, somebody who's programming and making those virtual worlds come to life, can make $108,000 a year. So that's a pretty fun fact to include.